Hello, Mr. Kevin.
Hello, Andy.
So this is the second part of the Q&A, and the first part was recorded fairly, which we like to say, opportune or inopportune time, just before we retained our Premier League status.
Yeah, ridiculously stupid time to do an interview.
Yeah, arguably so, but hey, I guess we said, well, the last one was recorded before we played Arsenal. We're about to play them again, so probably we'll have the same result, I imagine. The opening question then is a wide one, really, about how do you all feel about it? We know how the players felt about it because we saw them on the pitch and so on. We heard the manager talking about it as well. But how do people behind the scenes feel, yourself and your colleagues who work behind the scenes at Forest?
I think we felt elated and very proud, relieved. So a mixture of lots of emotions, really. I think in many respects it felt even better than the promotion. Because the task was huge that we faced, and I'm very proud of all the staff. And one of the big things for us is that the promotion had a massive impact on all internal processes within the club, and everybody's job, from media team to safeguarding to equality and diversity, right across the piece, and everybody stood up, and we managed to achieve what we'd all set out to achieve. So they were good days, yes, good days.
So what does it mean, Nick, behind the scenes? We were up for one season, now we're up for a second season. Mm-hmm. It's been said, and I think perhaps fairly, that when we were a championship team, we have a championship team on the pitch, but also behind the pitch as well, behind the scenes, and that behind the scenes we also needed to make that upgrade to being a Premier League team. What does that mean?
Well, I think
are you looking at recruitment and expansion, and
I think it's everywhere. I mean, one of the key things, I think, if you're a championship club without a parachute, and you're complying with P&S. The only model you can adopt is one where you're very lean off the pitch, and where people are they're multitasking, and you're relying on people to be able to do that across numerous areas. And when you get into the Premier League, you're hit by this body of requirements imposed by the league, as well as by the competition itself and the standards of the competition. So every area across the club you get far more scrutiny. And in that first season, it's very difficult to recruit because people always think you're the most likely candidate to get relegated, so why should they leave an existing Premier League home, for example, to come to you? And quite a few of the Premier League's requirements are they are sort of unique to the Premier League. So they're not things where you can get transferable skills easily.
So you'd be recruiting specialist people?
So you have to recruit specialist people. That all takes time. So it's a huge effort. And I think that where we hope, I think last time we spoke about a plan A and a plan B.
We did, yeah.
Obviously plan B would be to try and get back up straight away and to deal with the challenges of relegation. But plan A is as difficult in many respects as plan B, which is to consolidate without becoming complacent, and to, across the whole club, so not just the first team, but in every area of the club, we just need to take forward steps and to try and maintain standards and the culture, which is difficult to do when lots of new people come in. So you have a successful culture that got us out of the Championship, that's kept us up, and we need to try and keep the good bits as we move forward and improve on the bits that weren't so good. So it's a huge challenge.
So how are you feeling about prospects for the season? Not so much on the pitch, because that's perhaps not something that I'd ask you, but how are Forest making that transition into being an established Premier League side, you say? I mean, I'm hearing probably more to be done, but do you feel confident about where we're going?
Yeah, a lot more to be done, but I'm confident we have fantastic ownership. Mr. Marinakis has been incredibly supportive in every area, and it's not just, as I say, in relation to the first team in the Premier League, but it's also the women's team, which is now driving forward and achieving significant change. And we're, if anything, the challenges which face us there are probably equal to, if not more than the men's team, across the academy and across every area, social media, business, the commercial side. So we've got to build across all those fronts. Okay.
And feeling confident about our ability to do that?
Yeah, confident but not complacent.
Yeah.
And as the constant mantra I try and get across is that we respect everybody but fear no one, and that's the way that we must go forward.
Okay. Final question in that area, just to get some idea. The back office setup at Forest, would there be like twice as many people now? What does it sort of look like in terms is that what it is?
Well,
is
I quite regularly
huge numbers, or?
Well, I quite regularly see people I've never seen before.
Okay. Really, yeah.
It's a substantial increase. I don't know the precise number off the top of my head because it's constantly changing and evolving.
But it's a factor. It's big.
It's big. Yeah. And we've got to move in a way which is sustainable. Yeah. But which means it maximises our chances of staying in the Premier League because of everything that brings us. Yeah. Not just the club, not just the fans, but Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, the whole area. Okay. As you'll appreciate, the club is has a huge impact on the local economy. I think the last economic impact report we had suggested that it's a minimum of £150 million of effective investment into the area in terms of hard cash, but that doesn't include all of the soft benefits, the fact that people around the world are watching Forest and are alive to what Nottingham is and where it is, and will be looking, will want to come. We'll be getting supporters all around the world, and this obviously has a huge impact on our community at a time of economic difficulty. Yeah.
Okay. So that's £150 million since we've been in the Premier League, so that's a recent figure, is it?
Well, I think that's per season in the Premier League. That's what we're told the beneficial economic impact is on our community. Okay. Which seems to make sense, because that's probably sort of the level of potential income that you get. So.
Okay, it's an important factor. Okay, I'm going to move on, and I've got a series of questions now, which was of great interest to many fans, many of the people we received the questions from, and it's around ticketing in general. I've got a few questions around this, but in particular it was to do with price increases. You, me, everybody watching have heard the words many times, cost of living crisis. And what we've seen across the board, not just at Forest, but at Forest, we have seen it at Forest, is some substantial price increases in the cost of coming to watch the football. And so I'd like to ask a series of questions around this, but before I do so, I want to make the point that we have consulted with you at the Trust on behalf of the fans with regard to some of these prices. And so there was a consultation process put, and you listened, but in some cases you couldn't act, and we understand why, but perhaps you could explain a little more around some of that. And starting with home memberships. So there's been quite substantial changes to that scheme and big increases, and they, I guess, would particularly impact on families. So, a family of, say, 4 or 5 people, none of whom have got season tickets, but all of whom have home memberships. Why the changes to the home membership scheme, and why the price increases?
Well, we took advice as to what our existing schemes were like. And the very clear advice came back to say, look, this isn't the way you should do memberships, that membership should actually widen, broaden and deepen the relationship between the fans that don't have season tickets and season cards and the club, and that this was what consumers, to use the horrible term when you're talking about fans, look to. So the scheme was developed so that the benefits were substantially enhanced to accompany what is obviously some increase in price, which is acknowledged. So fans now have that are in the membership schemes have access to benefits that they've never had access to before. So it's not just about tickets. It's not just a scheme to get people in on tickets. As you'll appreciate, it allows there now to be a waiting list for season cards, which we've never had before.
Is there now a waiting list?
There is now a waiting list, okay. And that's what the membership gives you access to.
Is it confidential to say how many people are on the waiting list?
I'll get there in a minute.
Okay, sorry. Stop interrupting.
So there's that element to the scheme. In addition, there's things like retail discounts, competitions, benefits that money can't buy, experiences and things of that nature. So the package is significantly different, and so I think you're not comparing apples with apples if you go back to the previous scheme is the first thing. So the benefits have been substantially enhanced. We then have to take a value judgment and say, do we think overall this price is fair? And at the end of the day, we have to balance that against the needs to make this a Premier League football club and to try and retain and do everything we can off the pitch to maintain Premier League status, because one thing that I'm sure everybody, or virtually everybody, agrees is that being in the Premier League is a fantastic place to be, and it's where we need to be as a football club. We've spoken about the wider economic benefits for the community, etc., etc. And at the end of the day, we have to pick a price, and what we will always do is we will keep an open mind moving forward. We will look at the data. We will see if there is a big impact on families. My understanding is that there's no suggestion that that's the case at the moment. And all we can say is that there's been a huge take-up. Right. So as I understand it, memberships are at 23,000, including I think 3,000 in the youth and children categories. Okay. So to the extent to which you can say, look, we think we have to make some changes, and then you see how successful it is by the take-up, seems to have been a huge success. Okay,
that's interesting. People are going to want to know, I think, Nick, does that mean 23,000 people on the waiting list?
It doesn't mean the full 23,000. My understanding is that the relevant pro category is about 5,000. So 5,000 of that group will have joined the waiting list.
Okay, so a waiting list of 5,000 for season tickets.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's home memberships.
Yeah.
Away memberships. Now there have been far fewer changes to that scheme.
None at all.
None at all. One which was asked for.
Yeah.
And you know, we put this to you, was a ballot for a small number. I think we've got about 5,000 or thereabouts, less however many people didn't renew. I think the number was put as 4,600, but we did suggest a ballot for maybe 100 or a couple of hundred people who could not be away members but have a chance of a ticket. Why didn't we? Why didn't you go forward with that?
Well, I think that, I mean, to put it into context, first of all, obviously it was a scheme that we introduced at a time when there was this huge demand for away tickets. Yeah. Because we got back into the Premier League. We know there were some teething difficulties. There was some controversy at the outset. We believe the scheme has settled down. This is certainly the responses I think that we've had and that the ticket office have had. That I think that the culture of being in the Premier League, where you can't just pick and choose which away games you go to, I think has been learnt, and we've all gone through that process. And we feel that the purpose of the scheme when we introduced it was to try and match as closely as possible the people who had gone to the away games during the promotion season, to give them the best chance of tickets for the away games in the Premier League.
Yeah, this is the 400 group, isn't it, the Priority Plus?
Well, there's two elements to it. The first of all is those that had the away membership and that were going, but also there was a very substantial number of people who did not have away memberships, who went to a lot of games in that promotion season. Okay. because I think at that time you didn't need to have the away membership to get an away ticket, because the demand was obviously lower. And we believe from the stats that we've looked at that we've pretty much mirrored that group as close as one can. So we feel that the principal purpose of that scheme looks as if it's being satisfied. However, we also think that before we make any real decisions on it, we need to have another year's worth of data.
Okay.
So again, we undertake that we will keep the statistics under review, and we will assess again at the end of next season, or end of this season. But we believe that the stats are showing that overall, on average, away members are getting to more away games than they did when we were in the promotion season in the Championship. So we feel that the criticisms of it weren't actually borne out in practice. In relation to the ballot idea for a smaller number, I think there are a number of problems with that. The first is it seems to be a special interest group that are saying, I didn't get away membership, therefore I should be, but I would still like to go to away games. As you'll appreciate, that's very controversial for the group that have the away memberships, because they will say, well, I've got the away membership, why should I be giving away spaces to people that don't have it? So that's the first point. To a certain extent, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul on one view. In addition, we obviously have to take into account the position of the administrative side. And although, as I understand it, it's a scheme that people might intuitively think is not too difficult to run, our view is it would actually be quite cumbersome and difficult to run, and that obviously militates against its introduction. Having said that, I am also a believer that everybody's entitled to their first away game. So it is something which we certainly have not closed off for good. It's something that we will continue to review. But as I say, I think we would like another season of hard data before we can assess. As you know, Andy, we've spoken about it a lot. There's that complex balance that needs to be struck between rewarding loyalty in your core fans and making sure that the lifeblood of the club can be refreshed and renewed by new supporters.
For what it's worth, we probably have had as many people coming to us saying, it's not fair, I went to 13 games, 14 games in the promotion season, I want to be in the Priority Plus group. And we have as many people then saying, it's not fair, I want to be able to, I can't go for, sometimes very legitimate reasons, people working on Saturdays or whatever, or maybe just can't afford it, and I want a chance to go to 2 or 3 away games. We probably get a balance of that, but it's for me to put both views to you.
It comes across our desks all the time, the complex question, who is a fan? Who has the priority? Is it the person who's been to 5 games for 30 consistently every season for 30 seasons, or the person that's been to every game for 1 season?
Yeah,
it's a complex question.
Okay, it's a balance.
It's not open to a simple answer. And I suppose we're probably in that territory where if everyone's complaining a bit, you've probably got the right answer.
Okay, fair question. That's a fair answer. Right, next one. Matchday ticket price here at the City Ground. Substantial price increases seen. Again, in the context of the cost of living crisis, people saying, why? Why are we doing that? It's a relatively speaking small amount of income for the football club. Why can't Forest stand out? Why can't Forest be different to other Premier League sides? Because a lot of Premier League sides are putting the prices up as well. But why are we doing it? Because we are Nottingham Forest. Can't we be different? Can't we set an example to other Premier League sides to say, listen, we get a lot of money from media. Why do we need something? Why do we need to take this much money from the fans, especially the matchday pricing? Because I think £52 is the top price for a Category A game now, whereas a season ticket holder gets a price for 35. So why the price increases on those matchday tickets?
Well, again, I want to stress these are always the most difficult decisions that we take. But we have to strike the balance. We've got to, our priority has to be to stay in the Premier League for all of the reasons that we've discussed, including the importance to the community of this being a Premier League club. And if you're looking at the cost of living crisis, I'm not an economist, but I've got a pretty good idea that if we're putting in the difference between us being a Premier League club or a Championship club would have a significant impact on the poorest people in our community. So we have a responsibility to try and stay up. I don't believe our prices, even with the increases, are excessive. And one of the things that we always try and do is to benchmark against the rest of the Premier League and equivalent clubs. And we try to be in a moderate position.
What does moderate mean? You mean mainstream? For
moderate means
below,
sort of
below
bottom half in terms of
okay.
cost, is where I think that we would clearly want to be. So people can say, look, for a Premier League ticket, that's good value. And I believe that you know and I know that these prices are way below market value, that we could actually charge an awful lot more and we would still be sold out. But we don't do that. We don't just adopt that free market position. Nobody at this football club makes, Mr. Marinakis is not making money out of this exercise. So if you adopt a Marxist analysis, it breaks down immediately at that stage. This is not squeezing people for profit at all. It is trying to get a fair balance of income across all areas of the club so we can be a Premier League club. And P&S has a direct impact on P&S. You can't just say, look, we won't have increases in this area. And say,
not sure people know what P&S is, Nick.
Well, it's effectively FFP, so it all goes into the same element. We have to try and maximise commercial revenue within the context of being fair and making it affordable and trying not to damage what we have in this stadium on a match day. And again, we believe we strike the right balance, and the levels of demand that we have would again appear to indicate we've struck the right balance. We will keep the data under review, and if we think it is damaging families to any real proportionate extent, we'll have to look at that. But the other problem that we have when some journalists want to write stories about us is we had very low ticket prices before. And I think it is an unfair analysis to say to the club that have had lower prices and then effectively have moderate prices in the Premier League to say, well, you're the ones that are putting the real sting in the ticket prices. I don't think that's a fair analysis at all, because we're being punished for having done something beneficial in the past. And I don't think any fan thought there weren't going to be reasonable increases in price. And the vast majority of the ones I've spoken to have said they are actually expecting a higher increase. Okay. So look, we have to strike that balance, but everything has to be geared, as I say, to trying to be a Premier League club, to maximise our opportunities to stay in this division, but at the same time to try and be moderate within that Premier League landscape. And I think we're striking the right balance at the moment.
Okay. You'll probably be pleased to hear, I think it's the last question on the price increase. And that's kit. The kit prices, they came out of the season, and people look at it and say, is it, I think I'm right, £75 for a first team kit shirt? Seems like a lot of money. Again, big price increases compared to last season. I guess you're going to give me the same rationale behind that. Has that been benchmarked? How are we looking compared to other clubs on that?
I think we're in a good place. I think Adidas kits are more expensive. I'm one of those strange people who's never bought a replica kit, but I know some people, lots might be because of my body shape, but I think lots of people love them, and my understanding is there was a huge desire to have Adidas back from the fans.
No question about that.
Iconic kit, us, memories of Brian Moore and John McGovern and crackling reception from Europe, and that beautiful Adidas kit.
Yeah,
And
Peter Jones commentary for me on the radio. Yeah, that was.
And it feels as if we've squared the circle on that one. That
Yeah.
The team's back. We're in the Premier League, and we've got Adidas. And that has come at a bit of a price, but I can assure you that the club is taking pretty much the same amount out of each shirt sale. So we have not sought to soak the profits on that at all. So it's effectively an increase in price in the product. Again, Andy, this is a difficult one. You know I'm not a free market economist. But one of the yardsticks we have to apply is to whether we have got the pricing right, and whether we've got the product right, and whether we've got the mood of the fans right, is how many we sell. And they're record sales.
Okay.
Across the board, record sales. I'm not a fashion designer, but looks to me as if all three kits look pretty lovely. And I think we've done a good job there.
Yeah.
And again, fans seem to love them, and they're buying them in huge numbers. So have we got it right? Again, the best evidence might suggest that we've got a reasonable balance there.
Okay. No sponsor on the kit yet. Is that something that's an ongoing thing? Of course, we had UNHCR last year, and I know a lot of people were saying to us, proud to see our club giving publicity to an organisation like that. What are the plans for this season?
So we're in consultation with a number of potential partners in relation to that. I'm not exactly sure where that will end up, but you know that the position, I think we spoke about it a lot last season.
Yeah.
The position is that if we think we get value, then we will probably go for the front of shirt sponsor. If we can't get what we think is value, where we're allowed to do it under P&S, FFP, without any damaging consequence, which you can get if you then think about a charitable partner. So again, we're in that space where we're looking at it.
Yeah. How about for the Arsenal game? Likely to have nothing there? But, yeah.
I'm not sure. Not
okay.
sure at the moment.
Yeah.
Other people are looking at that.
Okay.
Other people are looking at that rather than me. But.
Okay, so thanks for all that. Turning now to a really positive area for the club, and that's the women's team. There have been some significant announcements about how we're going to be taking that side of Nottingham Forest forward. Can you talk about that a bit, please?
Yeah, I think as you may remember when we first came in, the women's team was a bit of an outpost, not really integrated into the club, and I want to pay tribute again to the volunteers and the people that kept it going in that era. But one of our objectives when we came in was to integrate it into the club, the women's side, which we've done, I think fairly successfully, and we want to continue that process and integrate it fully into the football structures of the club. So obviously last season was a very successful season, won the league and won the cup. Just missed out on the playoff, unfortunately, on promotion. But we want to take it further, so we've moved, and we're moving to a hybrid model, so it won't just be amateur anymore, there'll be a mix of professionalism as well for the first time ever. We've got them moved, I think, to play the games at Long Eaton this season, which we hope will be an improvement in terms of facilities and surface and crowds, ultimately. So that's all very exciting. Andy, the manager's moved on, but we're now recruiting for a new manager. We've got full-time staff in support. I think there's going to be training, I believe, at the training ground. And also I think there'll be some training at Home Road, which obviously has its historical connotations. That's where the first team used to train all those years ago. So across the whole area with the women's team, I think it's very positive. And look, our target is ambitious, and we want to get into the Super League. I mean, that is our medium-term target. So again, I see it, Andy, as being all part of being a Premier League club. To build that strength, to get women and girls involved, in big numbers, and everything that entails for us and our community trust, positive body images, etc., etc. So it's all part of the being a Premier League club and being able to play an active and proper role in the community.
Okay, so turning now to an area which has long been great success for Nottingham Forest, as the area of the academy. We've all stood in here on our feet singing "He's one of our own" when one of the the stars who've come through our own academy has done well. There have been some significant changes in the academy.
You used to boo Ryan Yates, though.
No, not me. No.
You,
I voted Ryan Yates to player of the season last year. So even though he was injured for a lot of it, no. There have been some important changes in the running of the academy. Can you talk a little bit about those, please? I think people would be very interested.
Certainly, we obviously see the academy as a fundamental part of the club. When we first came in, the target was to invest and to get to Category 1, which we've achieved, and I'm very happy to say that status has been continued, and we've got that, I think, for a further 2 seasons. That's been confirmed. So that's objective proof of the investment that we put into that area. The academy, I think this is a bit similar to the women's team. We now need to integrate it in the whole football structure to a higher degree than it has been before. And substantial investment is going in terms of staff and buildings and structures, and that's going to continue. And we see it as a fundamental part of the club moving forward. I think the atmosphere down there is very good. And there's positive changes.
Okay. It's been said quite often about some Premier League sides, not all, but some Premier League sides, that the academy becomes less important over time because the standards as we all witnessed last season, the standards in the Premier League are so high, you can't imagine an academy player coming through and then being able to, turn up for a Premier League side. Is that the case for Forest? Is it becoming less important for us in terms of feeding to the first team, or would you say it just remains as important?
Depends which way you look at it. No, the numbers might be smaller, but they might be more valuable. I mean, it's if you get one player through into the Premier League, that's a huge boost, not only for the whole community but for the bottom line for the club. And that one player could be worth more than 4 or 5 if you're in the Championship. So all depends which way you look at it. But I think our view is definitely that we want the Cat 1 Academy. We're going to continue to invest in it. And I think there's a huge benefit if you can get local talent into your team, into your first team in the Premier League. And it's fantastic to see, Joe and Ryan and that playing. And I think I always thought at the beginning of the last season that if those guys can make the grade, you've got a real chance. Yeah. And I think the fans identify with them in a way that they don't with other players. And it's a fantastic part of our story. So we want that definitely to continue.
Okay. A couple more. Sustainability. That's an area of quite a degree of interest to a lot. And a few people have seen the announcement about partnership with E.ON, and particularly I was talking about sustainability issues with them as a partner to the club. What can you say about what we're doing in that area?
So we've strengthened our relationship with E.ON, which we're very pleased about, and they have done a full audit for us of the City ground, the training ground and the club as a whole. And we're working through that audit with them. So we've got the experts involved, and we're going to do what we can. We know some of the areas we have the City ground is a challenge because of its age and its structure, but we have to do the best that we can in the circumstances we face. And as you know, obviously we do hope to have a new stand at some point, which enables us to rise up the rankings, because that really is, I think, the significant area in which you can make a difference is with your stadium, and that will be inbuilt to any development of this stand.
I have to say, obviously, any update on that? Well, I wasn't planning to ask you a question. You brought it up, so there we
are moving forward. We're continuing to move forward, and we're optimistic. Okay. These things take time.
Okay. Just last thing on sustainability. You're not going to make all the players have electric cars, then? No, that's not going to be.
That's not on the agenda yet. No, I don't know.
Okay. So my last question is around the newly announced, or relatively newly announced, Fan Advisory Board.
Yeah.
Now, the constituent members of the Fan Advisory Board come from various fan organisations, obviously including ourselves, the Supporters Club, Forts, Punjabi Forest. I'm not sure if I missed the Disability
Club.
So, tell me a bit about the Fan Advisory Board, and what are the implications of that body for the other fan representative bodies? You know, if you could talk around that a little, that'd be interesting.
So I think obviously the Premier League's new updated standard is what's led to the structural ideas. I think what we're trying to do is to formalise what we do to a certain extent already, but to embed it more into the rules of the club, and so everybody, so it's a bit more transparent than perhaps it has been up until now. And the idea is to get that. I think it's a two-way process. It's obviously for us to consult, but also for us to get the feedback and the ideas, and which from fans, which can contribute to the club as well. So it's something that we're very keen to get working on and to work with you on. And I think it will be a huge success. And one of the things that I'll always say, and I've said it repeatedly, right from day one, that the fans and all the groups that you mentioned, that obviously Punjabi Forest, for example, are new, but all of the groups have been great with us. We've never always agreed, but I think that's very healthy. I think it'd be a very sad world if we all agreed. And sometimes we have to do things that we don't particularly want to do, and it's right that we're held to account, or we're criticised when we do that. But overall, it's just been a fantastic relationship, I think, with all the groups. I mean, on our match day, I mean, some of the Forts of displays, I mean, these are just incredible. Yeah. And they genuinely take the breath away. Yeah, indeed. And so grateful to them for what they do and what they contribute to the club. And as you know, I try and be as accessible as possible. And I think I have good relationships with all of the groups, and I hope that can continue, and that we can make the journey together. So as you'll appreciate, there'll be more announcements in relation to it as we move forward, but I think it's an exciting development, and again, it's another part of, you know, I think we've been here 6 years now, and it's been an incredible journey, and if I look back at what we said we wanted to do, I think we've been pretty close to doing it so far, so just hope that we can now get to that stage where we become established in the Premier League, and each season we can grow and develop. And this is part of it.
I think if we continue to see the sort of support from the fans that we saw last season, with the City Ground being a fortress.
Best in the league, and you know, someone who shall remain nameless, but who is meant to be neutral in these things, came to one of the games and said that he'd been told by his colleagues that this was the best atmosphere in the league, and he obviously was sceptical about it, and then he came in within 10 minutes. He just said to me, "This is the best atmosphere in the league." Yeah. So I think we were I think the crowd was recorded as the loudest. Yeah. I think almost Motorhead proportions, I think, in terms of the decibels. So it just shows you how incredible.
Yeah, it's been deafening on a number of occasions. Okay, Nick, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I said this last time, but if I did, it's worthy of repetition. People listening might not like all of the answers that you've said, but it should be noted that it's unusual for a club chairman to sit and have questions posed by the fans in this manner. And I, for one, want to say thank you very much for doing that. I know most fans deeply appreciate it. So thanks very much.
I'm very grateful, and it's been a great journey for us. So thank you.